All right, recording has begun. So I'm going to record this, and if it's interesting, I'll put it up on YouTube for people to watch after the fact as well. If not, I mean, I don't know what to expect. So I want to preface this a couple ways. So basically, we have always assumed that they are working on that Ludeon is working on a new RimWorld DLC. They've always been a single game company. They've only put out RimWorld stuff. They've been putting out RimWorld stuff for 11 years. A couple other things I wanted to touch base on before we watch this. So basically, we're gonna watch this. And we're gonna kind of react to it. It's 40 minutes. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing or if we'll skip ahead a little bit. I don't know how interesting it'll be. But I've been wanting to watch this since it came out, and I've just not had time. And so now you guys are going to suffer through it, and I'm going to become a reaction streamer for about 40 minutes to an hour. It's the only way. So, but a couple things first. So, with RimWorld, the Steam database, the backend on Steam, you can see when a game or a developer uploads files. And back when they were working on Anomaly, they were uploading files, encrypted, code-worded files called Figment, I believe. Figment. And it turned out Figment ended up being the code name for Anomaly. Right after Anomaly came out, another back-end, like DLC, we'll call it, set of files happened, right? So they started uploading new stuff on the back end onto the Steam database again, which, I mean, pretty obviously they were working on something with RimWorld again. No big surprise. It shouldn't be like groundbreaking that they were doing that. But what we can try to think of is, because people ask me all the time, what are some of the things that they might do DLCs of? What did they think would be good for the game? So the vision of a developer can change over time, obviously. So, for instance, they've always said that RimWorld is supposed to be like a small scale, story-driven game, natural stories. They actually have mentioned specifically, Tynan as well, that they don't want the game to be like an RTS, like a traditional RTS. They don't want it to have 4X elements. They've specifically mentioned those kind of things, grand strategy and RTS. So those are not their vision for the game, or at least they weren't. So is that still the case? Can we are we going to dash some dreams where it's like, oh man, I hope for a big interconnected map of kingdoms and things like that are, that you manage? Is that going to happen? Probably not, unless they've kind of changed their mind. A good example is we always thought they wouldn't add children. Children are something that we didn't think they would add to the game, but they have added to the game, obviously, with biotech. So we're going to try to see where's their headspace at with DLCs and stuff. What of our wishes is probably never going to become reality, and what are they more likely to lean into? And then the other thing is we can kind of maybe determine a little bit of when to expect new DLCs. And that's a two-part thing. So I wanted to show something. Many of you know this, but it got posted a week ago on Ludeon social medias. So Ludeon posted this. They are looking for someone to make a DLC splash screen. So they are specifically looking for someone to make one of these. The only time they've ever had these is for DLC splash screens. So they're looking for an artist to hire to make one of these, and they've posted this. So obviously they are in the stages, a DLC, unless they're making another game somehow, but DLC is far enough along that they have the core of what it's going to be, and they are ready to start working on art. Now I will say that RimWorld and Ludeon isn't, like, in their hiring notices, they say no crunch. So they're not a company that's going to be like, you have to work 80 to 120 hours a week to get this done as fast as possible. You got to get this stuff done. So how far in advance do they hire an artist to give them time to make one of these things? Now, I've been told that in this marketing video about DLC, they go over timeline type stuff as well. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that and see, all right, when do they start thinking about assets and artwork more than ideas, So we're going to keep an eye on that, and really just where the direction of Ludeon and DLC development for RimWorld is at and where it's headed. So I'll pause this occasionally and we'll talk about some things. But let's see how this is. I don't know. It might be very dry, might not. We'll see. Sherlock Holmes and stuff. Yeah, we probably won't get any specifics, but again, I've wanted to watch this for a while, so why not do it together? All right. Let's go. I'll adjust the sound as we go.
So again, hi, my name's Tia. Thanks so much for...
Tia is the one that contacted me to test 1.5.
Having me here today. We're going to be talking about RimWorld expansions, a marketing postmortem. So a bit about me. I'm the marketing director at Ludeon Studios. I've been working on RimWorld since 2021. I primarily do marketing and PR, but I'm also behind some content, biz dev, and design. Those are my socials. And again, I'm living in Montreal, but I'm actually from Vancouver. So it's really nice to be back.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think
of today.
What was 2021?
So we're going to be talking about the marketing and PR around RimWorld's expansions and the.
Hey, we'll get some real information about the Australia ban, other than just you know, the rumor stuff that we talk around. Yeah, I saw that too immediately. Australia ban.
Lessons we learned from these campaigns and PR beats. So about RimWorld, why we made our expansions. We'll go through those marketing campaigns, and then a couple of fun events that happened. So let's start off with, okay, no audio, good. Let's start off with the intro to RimWorld. It's a sci-fi colony simulator, and you crash land on a dangerous planet, and you have to survive. You start out by collecting resources and building a base, and eventually you'll have to defend yourself from raiders, sentient robots, insects. And RimWorld is an immersive story generator. So there are systems upon systems to create interactions with your colonists, and they'll
I want to do something as well. 1 second. Because I don't want to just have to remember this. So this is something that we already know, of course, but so they are definitely still saying story generator. Okay.
Fall in love and get married, and then their spouse will die, and they'll go crazy because of it and go and dig up corpses. So every playthrough is different and unique, and the stories always change. Some quick facts. So RimWorld has 160,000 reviews on Steam, and we're at 97% positive. We have 4 expansions. We've got a bunch of free updates to the game, a console port, and we're turning 11 years old this year. Yay. So RimWorld fully released in 2018, and the team very quickly started working on expansions. And for context, this is what we call our DLCs. So the reason why is that RimWorld has the potential and design space for expansions, and not every game has this. RimWorld isn't a closed story with a defined ending that makes it difficult to add new content. It's about building a town of people and surviving for years. So obviously, there's a lot of room to add things like sci-fi Western themes, children, robots, xenohumans, DNA mods, and religion, and so much more. So we added all of those in expansions. Also, some obvious stuff that expansions increase.
You guys remember yesterday that were here where there was someone that was saying the developers are greedy because they want to earn money? Ludeon is a team of almost, what is it, more than 10 people? And someone was like, they should give all this stuff out for everyone for free. They could just do all this for free. It's like, yeah, okay.
Your game's lifespan and earn you money. Our players put hundreds of hours into RimWorld, so adding more content keeps them coming back, as well as keeps us relevant, and our modders have more tools to use. Earns us money so our team can grow, and we can be encouraged to keep working on the game. But it's also a way to monetize player time. So if over a third of your players are spending hundreds of hours in the game, and you're only charging $35 per copy, your game is under monetized. So think about revenue per copy.
Okay, all right. I'm just kidding. Guys, I'm not getting invited to test out the next patch. I'm just kidding. Listen, Ludeon, Tia, I'm just kidding. All right?
This points to us making expansions. We also had a lot more security and confidence in working on expansions versus a new product. There's no guarantee your new game will do as well as your old game, and it really would have been silly to walk away from the opportunity that was RimWorld.
Okay, so all right. we'll come back to some of these points, you know. But that is interesting. Some people ask me pretty often. They're like, "Do you think there's a RimWorld 2 coming?" According to this, probably not. Less likely so.
There were lots of players, and they were all asking for new content. So overall, expansions were a better bet to work on versus a new game that could fail and take a really long time. And also, so RimWorld is an expansion game now, and we actually earn more revenue from our expansions than the base game. So over a third of our players own at least one expansion, and it's likely much higher than this. It's just pretty hard to track. An idea of our sales makeup is that in July this year, 40% of our units sold were RimWorld, and 60% of them were expansions. And then net revenue, about 45% of that came from RimWorld, and 55% of that from expansions. So again, we're making some money from them. So our first expansion is Royalty. Royalty is themed around this royal empire that comes to your planet, and they ask you for help and give you quests in exchange for psychic powers, noble titles, and some cool tech. This is very heavy quest and content expansion, but Royalty's release was a little unusual. It didn't have any announcement, and also
I talk about this quite a bit when we're talking about like when to expect DLCs. For those of you that weren't around back then, it was pretty crazy. Like a lot of modders had left the scene and like, all right, I'll come back and update if there's a patch or whatever that breaks this, but it's obvious that Ludeon is done with RimWorld. They haven't said anything. There hasn't been a new patch. They haven't done anything in a long time. I think it's safe to say that RimWorld is done. And then they came out and they were like, hey guys, guess what? Oh, they even said at some point that they were working on something that wasn't RimWorld. That was it. We're working on something, but it's not RimWorld. It's not RimWorld. And then one day they came out and they were like, hey, remember when we said we weren't working on RimWorld? Well, we're not. We're working on RimWorld's first DLC, Royalty. It's not RimWorld. It's a RimWorld DLC. By the way, it's out tomorrow. Like it was a crazy, just sudden thing.
No Steam store page to get wishlist. It just came out.
Yeah.
And this was obviously a very big surprise to the community.
It was a crazy
and
release.
Of course, the question is, why wasn't there an announcement? And really, it's pretty simple. Ludeon's philosophy has always been development comes first. So that means that we don't discuss future releases or what's next. We don't promise it'll be ready on this date or that it'll have
If you want to watch
features,
this on your own sometime,
because we've been wrong before and things constantly change. So it's just much safer to not promise anything at all. And the most extreme version of that is to just not announce anything until it's literally ready. Another thing is the strategy had worked up until this point, so there was no drive to change it.
I think you captained 3 battles.
The team was very small. They didn't have a CM or a community manager or a marketing director. So dedicating a team member or spending time to hire someone would have cut their development by 20%. So some of the marketing lessons from Royalty. The first thing is that we should have done an announcement.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have that store page where we're collecting wish lists and we're showing up in Steam's popular upcoming, and more RimWorld players would have learned that it existed. This was also a very big opportunity for RimWorld. There were a lot of players asking for new content, and there was also the novelty of the very first RimWorld expansion. And Royalty did well, but with marketing, it could have done better, because marketing is an amplifier. So we would have amplified the success of Royalty. We also learned that simply having expansions will lead to you getting negative reviews for your base game. The fact you're making expansions upsets people. And they will say, for lots of reasons, but this is just a fact. It will happen. OK, so moving on to ideology. This is our second expansion, and this is where I come in. I joined in 2021 to specifically help with ideology. It is a expansion themed around belief systems, so essentially a religion for your colony. And you have immense freedom and creativity when you're designing this. You can be blind undergrounder mole people or pirate nudist cannibals. And part of our learnings from the last expansion is that we need a marketing campaign. We need some marketing in here. So I came in with a marketing plan. And since we have a lot of indie devs here, I wanted to talk about how I make mine. So here's a very bare bones version of.
All right, here we go. I don't know if she's going to go through this. Hire an artist for the key art. June 2022. Release day September. Guys, that's only 3 months away. That's only a 3-month. What? That's faster than I would have thought. 3 months between hiring key art and release. We'll see if that's the same with the other DLCs. I would have guessed like 5 to 6 months. 3 months? That would be crazy.
Of a plan.
Hang on, let's look through this some more. Hire an artist. Approve the sketch, line art, etc. Research influencers. Email pitches. Order review keys. Okay. Well, I was not contacted, so maybe they're like, he wouldn't be able to keep it a secret. I don't know. I would, by the way. I would. Okay. Upload description, etc. That's a month out after that. Jeez. Press kit goes out. Send out email pitches and review keys, etc. to influencers a month in advance. So we'll have to see if the others follow this, but if that's true, we might actually get real information about DLC a month after the artist is hired, and they're hiring the artist right now. Or to call tomorrow. Hang on, guys. I gotta check my email. Not related, by the way.
I start from release date and then I work backwards. So I write everything down and then organize it by month down to the day. So it's small there, but for example, if I know my expansion is going to come out in September, I know that at least 1 month ahead, I need my Steam store page published to the public. And I need to be sending out my emails and press keys to influencers. So that means at least 2 months before, I need my Steam store page done and sent to Steam for review. I need to be recording my trailer and editing it, and I need my press kit done. So that means at least 3 months before that,
she makes the trailer. Guys, it's not Tynan that makes these little bases with exposed conduit. It's Tia. All right. Now we know who to joke about. All right. Sorry, Tia. But next time we're playing RimWorld and we have some like screwed up looking base with wires going everywhere, it's no longer a Tynan love letter base. It's a Tia base. Appreciate you, by the way.
I'm getting an artist to do my key art. I'm researching my influencers and writing all those pitch emails. And you extend this to 9 months, a year, further than that.
We should watch the trailer. Go back and watch the trailer.
So next, I'll show you some of the marketing beats I used for ideology. I use the same format for all of the RimWorld expansions.
We already knew she does the blog post type things, yeah.
And this is these are really important for RimWorld because they get massive interactions with our players and visibility. So this ideology announcement got 17,000 upvotes, and a normal announcement would be more like 2,000 to 3,000 upvotes. And RimWorld's communications have primarily been through text and these big text announcements. We used to do devlogs, but they're extremely high effort and you lose a lot of detail. So text has been our primary form of communication. Next up is our influencer and press outreach.
Number one. No, I know it's not in order, but I gotta tell you, it's probably alphabetical, so don't tell anyone. It's probably alphabetical, you know? So, but we're gonna say it isn't. So get wrecked, ambiguous amphibian. No, he and I have talked. We're cool with each other. But anyway, it is kind of cool to see my name there. I gotta tell you that when I was coming up with when I was changing my Twitch name, and Modwife and I were talking about things, one of the things that I actually mentioned is that I wanted to appear higher in alphabetical lists on Discord and stuff like that. It's actually part of the reason why I went with Adam. Adam versus everything. Adam. I'm believing this is color coded because this purple is for YouTube and Twitch. Blue is probably YouTube, and there's probably a Twitch only color as well. Or maybe Twitch is whatever.
So by the time we did ideology, it was
Why not
pretty
Aaron?
easy
Because Aaron's not my name.
RimWorld's quite established by this time. There's lots of content creators, and they're consistently uploading stuff. So the most time-consuming part was collecting their information. And I've experimented with.
Does Ludeon know my real name? Ludeon knows my entire real name because I had to sign an NDA to test 1.5. So they even have you sign NDAs to test the patches. Yep. I have not been contacted. I will tell you that. So if they're going to contact me this time for a patch or anything like that, I have not been contacted yet. Sure, that's what you'd have to say. It is what I'd have to say, but I can swear to you that I'm not.
PR agencies, but in my case, I prefer to do my research on my own because I found that mass emailing campaigns didn't generate good leads. And so the time that I put into that, I would rather just spend researching influencers on my own. This, I always think, is the coolest part.
Sure.
Steam allowed us to have front page features for RimWorld for anyone that already owns the game to show the new expansions. And granted, you have to be pretty big to be able to get these. And it would have been nicer if we could show it to everyone on Steam, but we were limited to people who already owned RimWorld. And then a small thing, we do these in-game icons to indicate whether you...
I was thinking about this the other day. Wait, what color do you guys think the next icon will be? Right? I don't think it'll be any similar to this. So you think after Anomaly, obviously, we have the Anomaly color now. So, well, maybe purple, maybe a purple, green, different green. I'm thinking purple as well. I don't think it really means anything. I don't think we can really devise anything from purple. Orange could be one. Pink, I don't know. The reddish is kind of thinking purple. What's Anomaly? The Anomaly is this one, this like light green color.
You own the DLCs or you don't. Spoilers for looking too closely at those expansions. We'll talk about them soon. But this is essentially our current solution for how we advertise our expansions in-game. We're really deeply against anything that's spammy or obtrusive or intrusive that prevents you from just playing the game.
Black on black background.
It's mild,
Chameleon
but
update.
This is what we've come up with. So the results of our marketing campaign. We announced with 2.5 weeks between announcement and release. You can see we did these teaser blog posts and the considerable bumps in wish lists that they generated. We then released with 133,000 wish lists. Of those, 42% converted on release day, which, nearly 50%. That feels pretty good. We didn't have royalties wish lists to compare, but again, we felt good about that. So, our marketing lessons from Ideology.
Galaxy, thank you for the 2 months. The lip stuff, that's pretty normal, especially I used to do that before I was more practiced. Nothing against her, but she does do that at the end of like when she finishes a segment, and you can just, I don't mean in a negative way towards her. You can just tell that she's not a public speaker as a job, right? She does have some ums and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me, but I still have some people mentioning it. So trust me, it happens a whole lot. And like if you go back to my Darkest Dungeon streams back when I went from like 40 viewers to 200. I talked a lot less and a lot less confidently, and you could hear mouth noises for me a lot and lots of stuff as well. It's just one of those things. It's very common, so nothing against her. But yeah, you have to expect that. It's not like she's a public speaker. She's the marketing person at Ludeon. So no, it's pretty normal. Yeah, it's not like
we should have been giving
extreme.
Our PR beats time to breathe. So our audience didn't have time to
engage
with
just
those
practice
beats.
as
We
well.
only gave ourselves 2.5 weeks between announcement and release. So by the time a player had gotten the chance to read a blog and digest it, the next one was out. And then by the time
she's doing a bad job, but for anyone that was like mentioning that,
there really wasn't enough time for those beats to
like
breathe
a normal work meeting,
and generate the wish lists and get the fan appreciation that should have been there. Next thing is we needed to be very careful about setting player expectations. So you do this through your marketing, but it's also through our previous expansions. They set the precedent for the next expansion. So Royalty, which was the expansion before, was a very content-heavy quest expansion, and players thought Ideology might be like that too. It was not. Ideology is more of a role-playing expansion. It doesn't give you a lot to do directly, but it adds a ton of flavor and storytelling to a normal playthrough. So we struggled to communicate this idea and explain it to our players. So when Ideology came out, there was a lot of confusion with them not knowing what to expect.
Comms experience, yeah. Nothing at all.
So after ideology, everything is going really good. We've got some great sales, 2 successful
Thank you, Galaxy.
expansions, working on a
Anavar, thank you
third,
as well.
and also we're looking at working on our console port. And we're getting ready to announce it later this year, in 2022.
So I just wanted to, again, I didn't want to point that out against her. I just saw a couple of people mention it, so I wanted to point it out. Like, yeah, it's not a big deal. If it does bug you or something like that, this is pretty normal. I don't know if maybe you haven't heard a lot of people speaking when it's not their like profession to do so or whatever, but it's going to be doing a pretty good job.
So next. Oh, this is the part where we get banned in Australia.
Yes.
So in late February 2022, news articles are going up that our secret, unannounced console port, was refused classification by the Australian Classification Board. And this was a result of our console partner having to apply for ratings there. So being refused classification basically means your game is banned in Australia. And since these ratings are published publicly, it also means our console port just leaked.
She was kind of doing that as almost like a badge of honor, like, yeah, we got it. We got the Australian band badge. She's doing well, though, engaging. I mean, it's kind of hard to be, I would say, this is going to come out the wrong way to start with, but it's probably pretty hard to be entertaining or to be engaging in a marketing meeting to people that are like us, like that are not on the business side of this. But so far, I've been interested in it. I think it's all been good so far. So I think she's done a good job so far.
So it's not unheard of for the Australia board to refuse classification for console games. It's happened for things like Disco Elysium and Fallout for the same reasons it happened to RimWorld. Supposed drug use where the player is incentivized to use them. Historically, those bans didn't affect the PC version of the game.
So
for RimWorld, it did. So a few days later, RimWorld's taken down from Steam, and for Australians, and this was really scary for us. We posted an announcement apologizing to our community because we're worried. We don't know how they're going to react, but the response is generally very understanding and positive. But we don't know what this means for RimWorld going forward. Are we going to be banned in other places? But our console partners are awesome for this. They handled all of the legal stuff. We're just on standby to answer questions. So in late March, we get our appeal case. And the RimWorld community was really sweet here. They helped us find examples of games that had been rated by the Australian board, and they weren't banned, that had drug use connected to player incentives. So we were looking at things like Disco Elysium and Fallout, and also Binding of Isaac.
So I have to make this comment. So back when this happened, we actually read one of the lines by a lawyer or someone that was doing this on Ludeon's behalf for Australia about the negative drug use thing. And it was to the effect, I don't want to make this sound like a quote, but it was to the effect of listen, drugs are a thing in real life and they are bad. The addictions are meant to be overcome and you're not supposed to do these things. And so RimWorld is a game that depicts real situations. It really dives into these things. So you'll have the opportunity of drugs that you don't want to do them because they're a negative and it's a bad thing and people have to overcome them and you have to get over addiction. And I'm like, man, drugs are one of the greatest things in RimWorld. They are so easy to make the game easier and better. There are drugs with no downsides that you just friggin' pump people with drugs and the game is better and easier. It's like, there is no... You telling me, when I am building a min-max gene pack or something like that, the very first thing I go to is the one that allows you to take as much psychite as possible. It is so overpowered. It is incredibly overpowered because there is no downside and you can just pump them full of it. And then there's other drugs in the game, even without genes, that are super good to take all the time, like psychite T and things like that. So I just thought, and I know they were doing it, in part, it's true. And I'm not saying they were lying or stretching the truth, but it is just funny, the difference between someone or people that play the game as that story generator and people that play it more towards the min-max side most of the time. The disconnect between those two is just funny when you read those things where it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to do the drugs. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to be teaching your pawns how to get through these hard times. Hard times? Man, pump the go juice in, and get to killing those kids and eating them. I've also thought about that too. It was banned in Australia, and they were worried about it being banned in other places for them doing drugs. And I was like, man, drugs are one of the least bad things I've done in RimWorld. I had someone go out and kill their own brother and then strip his clothes off and put them on and then eat his dead corpse because I needed them to be unhappy enough to be at breakdown levels, okay? I've had people go out and murder 8 children and eat them. Like, taking some go juice is one of the least evil things on the spectrum that we've done and had to do in some runs. Had to do. So, I sometimes wonder if those kind of things came out in some of these countries that are more ban heavy, if the game would get banned in those because you're able to do those things. In fact, we thought they would never add children to the game, in part because of the things you can do to the children in the game.
We are also responsible for explaining how RimWorld...
Mr. Review Board Chairman, please do not go watch the Twitch channel Adam vs. Everything, or look for him on YouTube. He is not a representative of our game. In fact, if you look at his game, his is heavily modded. Don't ignore that vanilla unmodded title. That's a ruse. All that crazy war crime stuff, he's changed that himself.
Picks drugs as part of this hard-bitten world, and that they're negative. When your colonists use drugs, they're ineffective at their tasks, they have a lot of mood and mental problems, and they can die. So it's obvious when you're playing that drugs are harmful to your colony, and they'll kill your colonists, and it just isn't a sustainable strategy.
No, it's not, yeah.
So the result of all this work is that, yay, RimWorld's unbanned, and we're reclassified as R18+.
Sure, Tia, sure.
And then we got to go back on Steam. Yay. So some marketing lessons from the Australia ban.
Not sustainable.
So again, some context on the timeline here. So March to April, we were banned. We got unbanned in April. And then
today I learned go juice makes you worse
around this unbanning process. But we also noticed that our sales didn't go up in April. They weren't any higher with this news.
There was someone in the audience laughing. That was me.
Publicity is good publicity doesn't always apply here. Sometimes it's just noise. That being said, we did notice a very slight increase in our Australian Q2 and Q3 sales compared to previous years. So it's likely that those made up for the loss of sales in Q1 due to this ban, but again, they're pretty small. We also found that applying for console ratings can leak your console port. And it wasn't a terrible, nothing
I think we've all known a little bit about that.
We still announced the port, and players were really excited. Anyone
that's been following rumors of releasing games and stuff, no. God, the one I remember a lot is when Blizzard would register a new trademark for a word or a name, and suddenly there would be friggin' novels written about what it means or something. You guys remember that? Those it used to be back in, well, I haven't played WoW in a long time. I don't know if that's still the case, but I remember that. It's like, oh my God, breaking news. Blizzard just trademarked a 3-word sentence of some sort. And it's like, suddenly it sends out these ripples of things into the internet. It was so, yeah. And they would do code names like Titan, for Overwatch, for instance. Cataclysm, yeah.
We also found that it's a myth that if your console version is banned, it won't affect your PC version. It's not true. Your PC version isn't safe. So, moving on to our third expansion, Biotech.
Do that with Marvel movies now, too.
This one was really cool. It's a very ambitious project with 3 main features. Children, genetic modification, and building a robot army. And it was our biggest expansion yet. In fact, it could have been 2 separate products. So, with Biotech, we really embraced the idea that game design is marketing. The whole concept of marketing is that you're identifying a product that people want, and then you're strategically showing it to them with the goal of selling it. So we're focusing on designing a game that people actually want to play, and thus buy. So for Biotech, adding children to the game was everything good for RimWorld. It created this new class of rich relationships and stories and consequences for your characters. It gave new emotions and reasons to care, and added some very powerful story elements. Think of games like The Last of Us and the role that Ellie had with making you care about your gameplay. Same with the Walking Dead game with Lee and Clementine. So RimWorld is a dangerous place. Kids are at risk of injury, sickness, kidnapping, and the stakes are very high. So since RimWorld is a story generator about people surviving on a dangerous planet, of course there should be children.
Sound, thank you for the resub. Thank you, Sound.
Children are in stories. So with the marketing, I really focused on all of our materials telling stories. We made everything jam-packed with detail, especially our teaser blog posts. There was lots to read about and write about. As a result, it was very easy for journalists to cover our beats. So basically every teaser we did, we got an article on a major game.
I'm sure you have no
news
typos.
Good marketing generates more marketing. So among our screenshots, they all have a ton of detail. And I really focused on making these look like believable player-made colonies. Because I'd actually gotten in trouble about this in the past, where I was caught cheating items in for ideology. And it's worth it for a couple reasons. The first is that content creators make these hour-long videos analyzing every.
Is there a reason I'm not live streaming this to YouTube? Yes, unfortunately, YouTube makes it really bad to split streams in a day. So that's just YouTube bullcrap. I will upload this to YouTube. So if you would prefer to watch this on YouTube, I will upload this after the stream today. And it should be live by in the morning. So if you'd prefer to watch it on YouTube, yeah, I'll do that. But unfortunately, I've talked about it before, YouTube is really bad about allowing you to split streams on the platform. You have to make a new entire stream for every single section of your stream, and it's just a pain. So I'll upload this instead.
Every single thing in the screenshot and every sentence in our blog posts. And also, players then engage with these videos.
You're telling me people make hour-long videos analyzing screenshots? No.
Also,
no.
Having excellent screenshots is the core of your Steam store page. Your landing page should look as awesome as possible when people first see your game.
I will upload it in 4K, but I mean, her video is in 1080, so that's not going to you'll see me in 4K watching this 1080 video when I upload it.
So here on the right, I have a cannibal pig
remember Pork
family.
Chop.
And then on the bottom right, I have this really cute baby nursery. And mom's giving birth.
Who would do such?
And then I wanted to mention that sometimes the best marketing beats you can have are organic and by the community. So in a random screenshot, I hid a little pig child named Pork Chop and her pet dog. And the whole idea is that she's the sole survivor of this town as killer mechanoid robots walk by. And the community really latched onto this. They loved Pork Chop. And lots of fan art and stories about how Pork Chop became a mechanitor and built her own robot army with her cyborg dog. So I just want to encourage that.
It's a cool thing. I've had a few people make artwork out of like
and you should try to give them these
stories in RimWorld playthroughs I've done.
Especially when you have,
and it's always like
it's
really cool to see. I'm sure they get way more obviously
Another
than
strategy
I do,
that we added for biotech is that we ran discounts for the expansions for the very first time. And we always run sales whenever we release an expansion because it brings more people into the store, increases visibility, and we sell our other products. So it seems obvious, but before biotech's release, RimWorld's expansions had never gone on sale before. And here's some context. And this is because of Ludeon's historically conservative discount policy. In the 11 years it's been out, RimWorld has only ever gone 20% off on Steam. So why do we have this policy? And initially it came from developing a game in early access, but nowadays we're more inspired by Factorio. So it's been out for about 8 years now, and in that time, Factorio has never gone on sale. They have only ever increased their prices. And the Factorio devs have said publicly that it's about respecting your players that bought the game at full price. And it's also about believing your price is reasonable for your game and worth it. And for us, we think that RimWorld is worth it at full price. There is value for the content. So some stats. RimWorld has an average of 233 hours, 2,300 hours of playtime. And over 38% of our players have over 100 hours of in-game time. So that is value for your money.
So that's kind of crazy. Average, that's actually kind of crazy. I mean, money is a different value to every low number. It's not when you compare it to like everything else. That's kind of crazy. When you compare that to other games, that like, especially like mainstream games and things like that, that's absurd. Like that's a lot of value. I know money is different value to everyone, right? I would like to see the median as well. Yeah, I would like to see the median, because people like me and Smurf that are at like approaching 10,000 hours or something like that, that is pulling that up. All right, that's doing some heavy lifting. I would like to see the median. At some point.
So how has our discount policy performed? This little to no sale policy has worked, and the game has sold at full price, but we've definitely left money on the table by discounting so little, and we would have done better by...
Well, she's talking about the marketing. This is about marketing, Jig. It doesn't. Yeah, if the lead developer, whatever, founder of Factorio is insane, that doesn't change the fact that the marketing of RimWorld looks at games that are doing similar marketing as Factorio. So it doesn't matter at all. You can completely separate those things of what she's talking about. It's not like, oh, we want to emulate these people and how they are in life. It's literally pricing scheme.
Running these 10 to 20% sales off earlier in RimWorld's life. Also, we're changing
Average is 0.
Players are constantly saying that we don't run sales. This isn't true. We're regularly on sale. It just might not be on Steam. So we also run small sales, but that percentage is increasing as we become more and more of a DLC game. So with biotech's announcement, with biotech leading up to its announcement, we announced the price ahead of time. So the reason is that biotech was more expensive than ideology or royalty. And we wanted...
I remember people coming into the channel and telling me that they wouldn't buy it because it was so much more than the previous DLCs. Before it was even out, they were telling us in chat it wasn't worth it. Similar percentage players like you who have to the average probably gives a good idea. I would still like to know the median though. It might not be that far away. Yeah, that's a good point, but I still would like to know.
I wanted to communicate this ahead of time to reduce any shock or surprise from our community. And we weren't sure how much of a PR beat to make this. It wasn't enough to make it it wasn't enough content for an entire announcement. So
again, I don't want to get fully into it again, but yesterday, someone, I don't think they were trolling because other people started talking like this too. Yesterday, people were telling me that they think Ludeon, that they will not buy anything else from them because they think they're greedy. And I was like, man, they have a company with 10 plus employees that work full time, that have families and bills and, you know, food to buy and stuff like that. And it's a one title company. Like, what do you want them to? They're not. What do you? I mean, the person was literally like, they shouldn't be charging for these things. And we just saw that they get most of the income to pay their employees, not from the base game anymore. This is an 11-year-old game. If you think this 11-year-old game, the base game, is giving enough money to support all this, and those same people will be like, well, then they have too many people to keep working on the base game. Get rid of some of them. People want every game like this to be like Concerned Ape and Stardew Valley, which is an incredible thing that he's done. But we were talking about that yesterday too. People get upset with Concerned Ape as well. Still waiting for biotech on console. Yeah, I know the console thing is a little bit. I hope she gets into more of the console stuff. That is an unfortunate thing for sure. But people still get upset with Concerned Ape because he's not adding enough or like quick enough. You cannot win as a developer at all. Concerned Ape still one man. Yep, still the only person.
What we ended up doing is putting it in...
You wish Stardew Valley had a team like this to put out stuff? Yeah, right? Like, I don't understand. If you really like this stuff, don't you want it to continue to have... They do, but they want it to continue to have the same level of content for free and more often. It's just like, it's not a possible thing. It's just not reality, right? So you're living in some fantasy if you think... Yeah, we're not talking about like Blizzard or EA or Activision or something. It's nowhere near that. So it's just... They want these people to work for free, I guess, and... do these things. I don't know. Old Rob, thank you for the 3 months. Thank you, Old Rob.
In one of biotech's teaser blogs. And there we discussed that the new price is worth it because of the length of dev time, the growing team. It's our biggest expansion yet. But the issue with doing this is that while we did generate positive conversation among our community, very few people actually read it because it was so far down in the announcement. And then at release, we had that whole conversation all over again where people...
So I wanted to touch on this. I just saw an article about this, and part of me when I read it, what we're talking about, part of me when I read it was like, is this like the big companies putting this stuff out? I saw something recently. I'm curious how many of you, I know most people here are going to be more hardcore-ish side of gaming, right? You're watching videos about it. You're watching me watch videos about it. But I saw an article recently that was saying that, oh, people actually want shorter games. People are tired of games that are giving them 60 plus hours of content. And I was like, show me these people. Like, what? Everyone that I know is like, but I saw something that was like, people do not want huge, who is people? People do not want this extra content. I'm like, who's putting these out? Activision? EA? Like, who's doing these? So, now, if they're talking about games that are just putting in crap to fill in space, that's a different story. Right? Maybe that's what the article was talking about. It didn't really say that. But when you have a game that has like lots of just side fluff content, that's a different thing. But like if I buy a game and I get 60 plus hours of like good, rich, enjoyable content, I'm like, man, that was good, but I wish it was only 10 hours, you know? So right, if it's just like extra side grind for the case of just padding the hours, that's a different story. But like wanting it was talking about story specifically as well. It was talking about these big like RPGs. It was like, I don't want another 100-hour plus RPG. It's like, okay. Usually when I finish a really good game that's 100 hours, I'm like, God, I don't even know how to feel. Like even not a game like that. When I finished the Satisfactory story, when I finished the last send-off in Satisfactory, I almost had this like empty feeling like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do now? Like I wanted it to keep going, right? So I don't know. It seems like most of you are on the same page. I'm not going to read all out loud all the messages. It seems like most people are on the same page. Satisfactory has a story. Satisfactory has 2 stories, yep. And it has a main mission that you complete. And there you see a conclusion to it, yep.
We're shocked at the price. So, because they hadn't read that teaser announcement.
You wouldn't have had that empty feeling if you had less content.
This was probably unnecessary and we should have skipped it. Okay, so the results of biotech's marketing campaign, pretty good. We announced with over 3 times the wish list of Ideology's announcement. And then by day 9, we had surpassed Ideology's launch wish lists. And then we released with 182,000 wish lists. So of those on day 1, 38% of them converted. And again, Ideology's was 42%. So we're consistent. We're doing well. We're getting more wish lists, and we're keeping our conversion rate.
Is this video a couple months old? Yeah, but I'm just now getting to it.
So a couple things happened. So a few days before biotech's released, Steam updated their non-USD price conversion recommendations. So that's a mouthful, but it's basically that Steam helps you price your game in foreign currencies.
That's what I said. Like most people here are probably not super casual.
USD for your game, Steam will suggest what to price it in Canadian dollars, euros, pounds, and so on. So regional pricing is really important because some countries can't realistically buy RimWorld at $35. So I got this example from a friend. In India, $35 USD is about 3,000 rupees, which you could compare that to someone's monthly salary there. So obviously, we need regional pricing. And we've used Steam's recommended prices in the past for RimWorld, Royalty, Ideology. So we were happy to apply our new recommendations to biotech because we trust them, and we've done it before. But we're kind of like guinea pigs, because this is the first time that players are seeing the new recommended prices in action. And it turns out at this time that Turkey and Argentina were facing some serious hyperinflation. So Steam's recommended prices were incredibly high. So much that biotech is actually more expensive than the base game. In fact, it's 4 times more expensive in Turkey and 4.5 more times expensive in Argentina. And just one more time, the DLC is more expensive than the base game. So obviously, players are upset, and unfortunately, they're leaving negative reviews behind on our base game. And there's a lot of comments on the Steam forums in our subreddit. So the morning of biotech's release, we're literally on the phone with our Steam rep.
Yeah, this isn't her coming up with it. This is literally, so she's just coming in and saying that it's exaggerated. I mean, it could be, but these are the numbers that came straight off like Steam, right?
Asking to change our prices. And normally, Steam won't let you change so soon after release, but they understood that this was
Wait till you see GPU prices. Yeah, I have a comment about that too. So my editor, one of the things that slows her down is having to wait for things to render and scrubbing through video and stuff like that. So it'd be really nice to get her a better video card. And I was looking and I was like, oh, I wonder how much the 4090 is in South Africa. It was like 5,000 USD or something. I was like, all right, well, you're just gonna have to deal with your 3060 or whatever for now. like Jesus Christ.
was an unusual case, and that they set the recommendations. So they made an exception for us. And we are very lucky that we had this ability and this contact to do this. So in the end, we adjusted Turkey and Argentina's price as well.
I looked at shipping one. Due to shipping and customs and things like that, it would have still been something like 2,400 or something. The shipping alone was like 1,700. I don't remember. It was something crazy, but
well as several other currencies. And the response was very positive. Lots of
I should get on a plane and
players,
fly
nice
over there.
threads
Yeah.
and comments.
That's probably cheaper.
And it was sort of a PR moment for RimWorld. Very unintentional. It was just us responding to players' concerns. But the pricing fiasco continues because a couple of months after biotech released, we decided to change all of RimWorld's products' non-USD prices. And the reason why is that the situation with biotech suggested to us that RimWorld's prices were low. They were from 2018, after all. And we'd also noticed a disproportionate number of sales
like
from Turkey and Argentina.
Something like that.
Very suspicious. We do not have a massive player base in these countries. And it found out that over 20% of our worldwide unit sales were coming from Turkey and Argentina. So, what's happening here?
I think I know.
And it turns out that RimWorld was selling at an extreme discount in many currencies, but especially here. So $2.50 and $3. And we found out that people were using VPNs and taking advantage of these countries' regional pricing to get the game super duper cheap and then resell those keys somewhere else.
You're doing that, yeah. Makes sense.
And it found out that we're not the only one experiencing this, because in August,
hey, I have an idea.
Dead Cells had announced that they were changing their prices too in these countries for the exact same reasons. They found that they were getting a lot of Turkey and Argentina sales, but their player bases weren't increasing. And also, more SteamDB research showed us that lots of games had already increased their prices in these countries. So we're late. And we had major concerns about this. We wanted to change our prices, but after being review bombed with biotech's Turkey and Argentina situation, we were nervous. And it wasn't just players from these countries. It was also, we were getting negative reviews from the people who had been using VPNs to get the cheap copies, and they no longer could. So we released a Steam announcement about our non-USD price increases to let our community know why. And we explained that we're
contingent people taking advantage. Yeah,
we cited Valve's new price.
And not just people taking advantage of themselves. You get a lot of key reseller stuff going on too. Like a lot of those shady sites that are like, no, we have legitimate keys and stuff. They'll do that, and then you'll buy it for cheap, and then you'll get your copy banned, taken out. Unlike Phoenix. Good.
Recommendations. We explained the VPN arbitrage that was happening, and how people were taking advantage of regional pricing.
Oh yeah, lots
how
of places.
It sucks for the legitimate people
link, for
that live in those countries. How the world's changed a lot since 2018. And also, we encouraged people to get the game while it was at its lower price before we increased the prices. And I just want to mention that with any PR beat, please be prepared for negativity, because people really hated this. There was a lot of community support too, but overall, the discussion was very toxic. And you know what? A few months later, we felt that we had gone overboard. We found that Steam's pricing recommendations were still too high, so we decreased our prices, and we announced it. Turns out, people also hated that. So it feels like you just can't win. So the lesson here is that you should not discuss your price changes with your community. Do what several other games have done, where they just adjusted their prices and they said nothing at all, because you can do that. It doesn't matter if you're
we were just talking about you, actually.
You have good reasons for it.
We're talking about regional pricings of things, and I let them know that when you and I were looking at better video cards for editing,
and we made this
that they're like $1 billion in South Africa.
Price change, with RimWorld's price increase, and with RimWorld's price decrease. You know what? And our players even acknowledged that us doing these announcements was just asking to be flamed and hated on. So moving on to Anomaly. This is our most recent expansion. It came out this year in April, and a bit of trivia. She's based on me.
Aww.
Yeah.
What about her?
So Anomaly is a RimWorld horror expansion. It adds spooky events. Things like flesh creatures will burrow in from underneath your colony, and invisible monsters will hypnotize your colonists. It's also SCP-like. You can build these containment facilities and then study the entities that you capture. Anomaly was feature complete 2 months before it released, and the remaining time was all for marketing and testing. So this was awesome because we then gave ourselves more time to announce. We had a month between announcement and release. We also got streamers in to test. So we've always had testers, but by bringing in streamers, we got this really unique experience where these are people who are great at narrating their thoughts live, and it's very different from written feedback. We also did paid promotions. This was our first time paying for a front page slot on one of our store platforms, and it certainly was worth it for us. We paid back what we paid and more. And then we also launched with localization. Previously, we'd only ever released the expansion in English, and our community would have translated it themselves. So we wanted to give our non-English players the opportunity to play on day 1 too. And we also repeated that marketing beat with
Still wish the cube was more intense.
With screenshots and blog posts. And one of the events that can happen in Anomaly is that you're sent this beautiful cube as a gift. And slowly your colonists will become obsessed with it. And they want to be near the cube. They want to hold it. They'll make sculptures of it. And they love the cube. And people really took a hold of this and went wild with the memes and fan art. And then here's one with me that they drew.
Oh, yes.
So
Remember
again,
we thought initially she was holding cheese. We joked about it.
Community marketing is fantastic. So the results of our marketing campaign, it was with every expansion, our wish lists grow compared to the last one. And we gave ourselves a month
The blogs
between
didn't do
announcement
as,
and release.
as
So
big percentage-wise as the previous DLCs.
Anomaly's announcement had nearly 2 times the amount of wish
Wait,
lists
is it cheese?
compared to Biotech. So there was about 76,000 wish lists on day 1. We surpassed Biotech's launch wish lists by day 3, and then we launched with 304,000 wish lists. But interestingly, only 25% of our wish lists converted on release day, which
so Anomaly had 75,000 Steam cells on day 1. 304,000 is more total, yeah, but the percentage came from different places. More of the percentage came from the announcement this time rather than the blog posts. That's actually quite a bit. I don't know if I would have guessed that. That's pretty.
which was
Anomaly
nearly
did
the exact
pretty well
same
on
number
launch.
of unit activations as Biotech's release day. And there's a few reasons that this could be, but we don't exactly know why. I think it's
She said the wish lists converted, so that sells. Yeah, Steam gets a pretty high amount as well. Yep.
worth analyzing the lessons afterwards about Anomaly. But we also think it was largely connected to the day of the week that Biotech released, and Anomaly released. So Biotech came out on a Friday, which is traditionally one of our best-selling days. And then Anomaly released on a Thursday, traditionally one of the lower-selling days. So this big difference in sales wasn't that important. We actually caught up with unit sales a week later. But overall, some marketing lessons from Anomaly. It is not our highest reviewed or best-selling expansion.
You thought they were announcing a DLC, you got baited. I think I was pretty clear what I was talking about the last couple days when I said I was doing this.
We tried something different, and it's not always a giant success. So what did we learn? We found with Anomaly that there is a problem when the expansion differs too much from the base game. For a player to like Anomaly, they needed to both enjoy RimWorld and horror. So people also expect more of the same. So Ideology and Biotech, the previous expansions, were just more RimWorld. But Anomaly is very different in 2 ways.
Oops.
The first is that it's horror, The other is that it's more of a linear story where you complete it once or twice, and you've seen all the scares, and you've completed all of the content and come to the end. Whereas ideology and biotech, these are endless and replayable, much like RimWorld. So again, for a player to really enjoy Anomaly, they needed to fit into this sort of Venn diagram of both liking RimWorld and horror. And this is really just a subset of our audience. It's legitimate to make a new, different product, but by digging into horror, we were cutting our audience down into this little subsection that would have been interested in this product.
Eat without a table, yeah, I know.
Would have been interested in this.
Core RimWorld is eating without a table. Muffalo, boom rats. Horror is whatever the crap that is up there. And it.
Product. And with horror, we found that we struggle with balancing spoiling too much of it and too little. So horror is built around mystery and not knowing what's coming. With marketing, you want to show people all the cool things that are coming. And this is interesting because in the earlier talk today, there was the discussion of how much should we show before we release versus how little. And we struggle with this because with Anomaly, we revealed everything in our teaser blog posts. We would add like a spoiler announcement, but we found that it would just, that people would read all of it and then spoil themselves. So by the time they streamed it live, they knew everything that would happen. And then our final lesson, localization made people happy. People loved being able to play in their local language on day one, and it reduced these constant negative reviews on day one. We would always get reviews from people saying it's not available in my language on day one. So that 10% of negative reviews was basically eliminated with this. Okay, so to wrap up here, RimWorld is a massive game. It's full of this rich storytelling and depth. We have an incredible audience of deeply passionate players and modders and creators. We've had some successes and some silly fails, and we're learning across the 11 years of game updates, expansions, and marketing beats. So I hope you enjoyed our story. Thank you so much for listening. And also, we're hiring. Sorry, I'm running a little long.
Wow, they're hiring. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, now questions.
We'll see what kind of questions. I might skip this part.
If you were to give a recommendation for a tiny studio, say like 1 to 2 people for marketing, what would be the #1 thing that you would do?
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, how far market? But yeah, I mean, at the posting up, just get followers.
Eventually get a store. Yeah, I don't have a store page yet.
And get that ready. They follow also.
Okay.
Thank you for the talk. I'm a huge fan of RimWorld.
That's awesome.
Since Alpha 14.
Wow.
10 years. And one of the things I love about RimWorld is that it has that huge modding community.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps it fresh. And I wanted to know how that modding community factors into creating expansions and deciding on expansion content.
Good question.
Where popular mods overlap with expansion features.
I see. Are you a modder yourself?
No, I've tried.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say that with any expansion.
So the question for those that couldn't understand it was basically, RimWorld has always embraced the modding community, and modding is a big part of RimWorld. How does modding impact what they decide to do with DLCs and the overlap between them?
We're making the content, like, frankly, a lot of the stuff we're working on, we're just thinking about what would be the coolest stuff to add to the game. And what's interesting is that some of the earlier stuff that RimWorld, basically all the expansions that RimWorld has done, it's the same stuff that Tynan, the creator of RimWorld, wrote down in a document like years ago. And people always point back to, whoa, he came up with that idea like 10 years ago and he's doing it now. So really, like I talk about it, our game design is marketing, and we're not thinking about what is going on outside of our world. We're just focusing on what is the best way to improve RimWorld? What spaces can we move into? So like with biotech, obviously children needed to be part of it. With Anomaly, we tried something different. We thought that this was a really great opportunity for horror. So again, we're thinking about what is the coolest stuff we can add to our game. And again, external things, we're not really part of that world. But that's so cool that you're a long-term fan. I would love to talk after.
Okay. Yeah, I think she did a good job, like we said earlier. I don't know if they'll end up watching me watch this or anything, but a round of applause in chat for Tia. She's the one that reached out to me about testing 1.5 as well, and they were very nice the little bit that we talked, so yay. All right, so there's a couple things there that we can go. She did good? Yeah, she's not a public speaker, but it went really well. Thanks, Tia. Well, we gotta keep doing it that way. I'm gonna send this clip to them, and they'll be like, yeah, now we'll let him test the next one too. Get that guy on 1.6 right away. All right. So, if you want to watch this yourself, go back through it if you missed some of it. I will upload this to YouTube tonight, and it'll be there tomorrow. We are going to talk a little bit before I get started playing today about some of the things that we looked at. And if you want to see the video raw in itself, you can type exclamation DLC. So I also want to ask about the story Bible. Yes, I went through all of this last time before Anomaly came out. We read every single bit of it again. And I guessed, we guessed because of it, that they were going to do something with this dark god, these dark gods, which ended up the case. A TS celebrate emotes. Yeah, maybe. All right. So here's one of the big things. All right, well, let's just do a real recap here. So they do still see it as immersive story generator. Tynan and some of the other developers have specifically said that they don't like leaning into the RTS aspect or the 4X grand strategy aspect. So the way that I mainly play the game, I mean, we've been doing a lot of themed runs, of course, and like melding those two worlds, but the core of it, the core market, the vision that they have has not changed. Theirs is all about the stories that can be told organically, right? So, for instance, yesterday, the developers would look at that and be like, all right, this is not about them going out there and kiting these guys and shooting and surviving. This is about the three family members. We had a married couple and the brother, and the married couple are trying for a child, and the wife cheated on the husband with the brother, and then they broke up, and then the other two got together. They would focus in on that, right? They would focus in on the story aspect of it. What kind of things like that can happen haven't been explored? Could be a good question leading into what is possible that they would do. What gives you story generation? And I'm going to touch back on this later because it's not just raw story generation. It's story generation that can have many branching aspects, unlike Anomaly, it sounds like, right? GST, they were the 7 months. Mary Quinn, they were the 20 months. Deef, Mean Deef, they were the 20 months as well. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. So they also are looking for long-term gameplay. Their average player plays 230 plus hours of RimWorld, so they're looking for things that are replayable. One of the I like Anomaly. I saw a lot of people talking about not liking Anomaly. And I've got to tell you, Anomaly does not fit some of this stuff. And they did seem like they realized that. I'm not sure we're going to get another hyper-focused DLC like Anomaly for better or worse. I like Anomaly. I think Anomaly is the best ending. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in Anomaly. If you took Anomaly and you took like half of it and you reconfigured it to work in a non-horror fashion, and then you gave it another like pillar to build on, kind of like Biotech. So Biotech had 3 pillars we've talked about. It had like the family, it had Mechanitor, and then it had genes. Obviously, some of those were overlapping. But yeah, if like the horror event negative aspect of it was just one pillar, a smaller, and then 2 others, like maybe it would have done better. But anyway, they're looking for a lot of replayability, which I really don't think Anomaly has. That's my biggest gripe with Anomaly, is once you know how everything works in Anomaly, the events always work the same way. And you could say the same thing about raids, but, you know, if you say the same thing about raids, it ends up being a reskinned raid, right? So they also do think about adding more stuff for modders to use in their games. So taking some of the aspects of the DLC. Not really sure what that means entirely based on previous thing, but they did say modding was a big part of the community. They also did say that they do not look at mods specifically for what they add or don't add or what people want or don't want. They did say that Concerned Ape is an idiot and he's under monetizing his game and he's not greedy enough. No, that was a joke. Let's see. Yeah, making a new game, and there's still more to do. And the first one would be silly. Not as many new players returning. So most of their not as many new players play RimWorld anymore, or buy RimWorld. People buying RimWorld is only like 30 to 40%, maybe even less now, you know, or maybe slightly more since there's no new DLC. But here's one of the things: 3 months between hiring a key art and releasing. Okay, so I'll show this again for those that weren't here. I'm really surprised by this, I gotta tell you. They posted this on March 10th. So they posted this, that's why we're watching this. They posted this last week. They're hiring the artist right now. Previous expansions since Tia has been there. 3 months between hiring the artist and DLC release. Sample's not solidly accurate. I know, but you can get an idea of it, right? Like, if they've been 3 months, when she's looking back at previous ones, I don't think suddenly we're going to be saying a year from now, and probably not next month. But they are getting an artist now. So I would say 3+ months, right? So I would say probably minimum we have 3 months. But obviously they're also, so again, for those that didn't hear, when they hire, they specifically say they're not a crunch environment. So what does that mean? So the crunch environment is like working crazy overtime, sleeping in the office, get things done. We have a deadline. It has to be out by this date. You need to do this. So if things aren't ready, if things aren't done, they will let you continue. I also have to tell you, I hate to do this because I don't know anything and I don't want to make him upset or anything. But we were joking yesterday when Smurf was here. It's like, I'm doing this video and Smurf oftentimes tests the patches and stuff very early because he works on the wiki and things like that. And Smurf just announced that he won't be streaming as much for a little while. And he didn't say why. So I don't want to, again, just kidding. But hey, you know. Hey, there he is. I knew you were here. Lies. Yeah. Just kidding. Anyway, previous expansions don't necessarily set the reality of future DLCs. So, the new DLC does not have to match anything. It needs to add new storytelling. I also noticed that she said a couple of times, like, obviously the game needed this because this is an obvious storytelling part of life the game doesn't currently have. What's an obvious storytelling part of life that we don't have in the game yet? I think relationships need to be expanded. I did see that people were saying like politics and government type stuff was not likely. But like and it wasn't storytelling. I think a lot of that is like storytelling, right? Like you're joking about debt and taxes and stuff, but imagine if like a kingdom type mode, right? So I think diplomacy is one. Caravanning, I don't know, man. I've told this before. Depression's in the game. I don't want to put words in the developers' mouths, but when I was testing 1.5 and we were talking occasionally on Discord, like in voice chat while I was testing 1.5. And I was getting all the cheeses. Smurf and I were getting all the cheeses, patched out of the game, apparently. We talked about, I mentioned caravanning, and it didn't sound like caravanning was a big part. Any reason why I don't stream this part on YouTube? Yes, I already went over that. YouTube streaming is really bad about doing split streams. I can't, it's so stupid on YouTube to set up split streams, and you have to set up each individual part as a different stream. You have to stop the stream and restart it. You have to have a different thumbnail, different description. I will upload this to YouTube for tomorrow. You can watch it on YouTube tomorrow if you want, but it will not be streamed. I will stream the gameplay later today. Told on us for cheesing, I did. But yeah, I'm afraid that, again, also they specifically said, and this is on, you can go read this, they specifically talked about not wanting the game to feel like traditional RTS or like 4X related. So I don't think we'll get like big, sprawling, commanding of kingdoms type things, right? Another thing I would say is, we touch on this again further down, is it seems to me, I don't want to say it like in a real negative, like, yeah, now you've learned your lesson, but it seems to me kind of like, to put it in this way still, they learned their lesson from Anomaly. I don't think Anomaly was as successful as they were wanting. I think that I think Anomaly is good. I think they're proud of Anomaly. That's what I gathered from that, and talking to some devs in Discord when I was testing stuff. But I do think that they're like, all right, this is a little bit too niche. Too little of the fan base wants this horror stuff. So I'm not so sure that we'll get another like big thing like that. And hey, I might be completely wrong. Maybe they are like YouTube late. Yeah, I'll do YouTube after this here. I had no idea when this would end, so 1 second. There's a lot of people coming over and asking. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times. Let's see. There we go. We're almost done. And we'll play. So having said that, we could still get things like more match or something. So ideology were your favorites? Yeah, mine too. Ideology and biotech, I think, is the real core. So you want I like Anomaly. I still think Anomaly has the best ending, but I don't know that Anomaly doesn't have as much replayability. Like, when you look at something like, take a facet out of biotech, let's take one. Let's take mechs, friendly mechs. Take friendly mechs. You can go differently with them each time. You can go into only worker mechs. You can go into certain kinds of fighting mechs. You can go into only fighting mechs. You can, you know, be one with the pollution. You can try to get rid of the pollution. You can be whatever. There's different, like, small aspects branching from going Mechanitor, right? In Anomaly, where's the branching? You just do the exact same events the same way every time. It just doesn't, it's not, there's no branching. It's just a straight line of each one, right? So I don't know. No mech at all. Use the other parts of the DLC, right? Yeah, like there's, so when we were actually theory crafting what the next DLC could be, we were looking at previous ones and we were like, all right, the DLC is never focused on one entire thing. It's always like a couple of different pillars, and Anomaly didn't do that. So if they had taken Anomaly stuff and the horror aspect been just like 1/3 of the game or something like that, maybe like archaeology as another third, and exploration as another third or something, right? Then maybe it would have been amazing. Also, I wanted to touch on something that we talked about during gameplay yesterday. Someone asked me yesterday, what number of colonists do the developers want you to have? Which is kind of a weird, it's not exactly this, but I'll tell you, in the coding of the game, outside of DLC stuff, the game kind of wants you to stay between like 8 to 12. Like, not exactly. You could have a little bit less, a little bit more, but really, if you just play on complete vanilla and you don't know how to get more colonists other than just like, you know, quests occasionally, recruiting, whatever, over 9,000, you will end up having like 8 to 12. If you look at new people to the game and you watch, they'll probably have somewhere between 5 and 12 people for most of their playthroughs. So when we think of that, and that's actually in the coding of the game, what are stories and consequences that can be added to those small colonies that add branching, like rich story generation content, right? So I disable a toe down early game forced join events without mods. I'm not sure, actually. Not that I know of. So they also like the consequences and emotions that are put in the game. So I really think relationships could be expanded. Relationships are pretty bad at the moment. One of the big things that I talked about is like this intrigue type thing, like spies and things like that. Maybe I'll do a different video sometime where we talk about our wishes and thinking out what really could be a DLC. But I would love to have some kind of like spy harem win. You kind of already do that. Spy type mechanic. What I mean by that is it's kind of unfortunate that if a colonist has family members, like hospitality stuff, yeah, hospitality stuff in the main game would be great. If you have family members in a opposing faction and they attack you, you have no recourse from it. You have to defend yourself and they get unhappy. Obviously, they get unhappy. That makes sense. But if there was like some kind of, you have a unit that you could implant in them into that settlement, and if it goes well and they're successful, maybe they smuggle out a relative, or maybe they make the next raid weaker, or the other way around. We already have like being able to investigate things with Anomaly. Like you have a join and you don't realize or interrogate and figure out that they're working for the enemy. And next time a raid happens, they unlock the doors or something like that, right? There's a mod for that. Yeah, we're talking about not modded, of course. I know you're just kidding, but let's see. I would like to ask them about the median hours and how much different it is from this. I bet it's not that much different, but people like me and Smurf and others that have 10,000 hours in the game, you know, February 24th. Think of it like a party-based RPG. 20 members is too many for the story. Right, yeah, so exactly. So it really feels like, and would you agree, Smurf, you look at the files and stuff pretty often, that if you had to pick a number that vanilla wants you to be at, 8 is always what comes to my mind. Like 8 is kind of that Swedish spot of what they want, so to say. So they would need to rewrite relatives, which would be good as well. Yeah, I think relations, relatives, that kind of thing. Sounds reasonable to you. 8 always comes to your mind as well. 2 months of testing, marketing, but game is complete at this stage. Okay. So what I'm thinking is, based on this hiring thing, if I had to guess, I would say that we're like 3 to 5 months out. I think that's reasonable. But again, they don't crunch. So if something's not ready and they need to add more, they have new ideas or something like that, that could expand, right? But I think we'll get one this year, based on everything that she was saying. Here we go again about Anomaly. Did you get that same tone from her? I mean, she was being very business-like because it was a business meeting, but I really did get that sort of the inflections there that was like, man, Anomaly, it was a test, and we were testing some stuff out with Anomaly, and boy, it didn't seem like the reception was as good as we thought. We thought it might have some divisiveness, but maybe it was a little bit more divisive than we thought, especially when she did the like Venn diagram, and it's like, you know, the player base that fits in the middle is actually way smaller than in previous ones, right? Might be in also, yeah. So, and again, if we go back to the pillar thing, maybe they'll test the waters with that some more, but it not be the full DLC, you know? They want more replayability, which that's one of the main things I hear about with Anomaly. It's like, Anomaly is the DLC that you turn off. And that's not from a developer, both like has a game that they love, but also as like marketing wise, you don't want people to turn it off, right? Like, that's not what you want your DLC to be known for, your expansion or your game. Anomaly is the DLC that people turn off. Not always off. And some people obviously are going to leave it on all the time. But, and they did add like the mode where, well, they added the levers so you can put it up and down. They also added it so Anomaly events just happen as normal events and it's not centered around it. But still. Hijacks the game, yeah. Why is Anomaly usually turned off? Because Anomaly is always the same, and it also takes over a lot of the game. Less so than it did on release, but every Anomaly always is the same. Like, yeah, sometimes the Revenant is going to be a little bit different, but it always functions the same. A Revenant is always a Revenant. The story behind the Revenant doesn't really change as much as, like, stories about having and raising the children, or like mechs or whatever we talked about earlier. Cool stuff to add to the game. Don't think a ton on what it is. It isn't a mod already. And then they do continue to follow this. So I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna go back through this right now. We'll go through this story Bible thing again closer to when we get some real concrete stuff. Battle Horror is completely changed when you first saw the Gray Flesh and you see it now. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, once you know all the Anomaly stuff, it's like watching a jump scare movie where the movie is all about the jump scares. And it's like, if you're someone that likes them, right? Like the first time you watch the movie and you're blind to it and you get jump scared by it, and your body has this visceral reaction, this shock reaction to it. And then the next time when you just know. It's the difference between like playing through Outlast and like us being a speedrunner of Outlast or something. It's doing and just running seems like the same area. They're trying to get to something they can't reach is usually the thing, yeah. Or it's a mod. Usually they're trying to access something they can't reach. I had that happen during my first Anomaly playthrough. So anyway, I to go back really quick, we're almost done. I'm not going to, yeah, you can check errors in the devlog, but it's probably trying to reach something that they can't reach. I'm not going to go back through the whole story Bible now that they have, but there is one of these that's been updated a couple times, and it was originally released like 10 years ago or something, where it's very dry. It's almost like an encyclopedia-ish type thing about RimWorld and the history of RimWorld inside the game, not a history of the game. And it goes over things like how the RimWorlds were found, have they found aliens, the fauna, the planets, the history of the bugs, the history of the mechs, those sort of things. And we went over all that last time. I will tell you that some of the things in there that I remember that have not been touched on so far are climate related. Terraforming was mentioned a lot in the story Bible. We did get the atmospheric heater in Anomaly, but I wouldn't doubt if there's more pieces of that added, more weather events, things like that, more I mean, if you look at something like disasters, like if you look at those are story generating machines, you know, and a lot of things do that, like disasters. So, yeah, imagine like, I know most of us would just kill them, but imagine like world or centralized disasters where like lots of more joint events are happening, lots of refugees are happening, things like that, right? Like that could be a thing. That could pair really well with a hospitality type mod built into a DLC, right? So that's one of the things that's mentioned a lot. I'll tell you another thing that's mentioned a lot is there are lots of RimWorld types, and we only have one type. In the story Bible, if you read back through there, that's what I call it. They don't call it that. I'm used to calling those. If you read back through there, you are a story generating machine. They talk about all kinds of different worlds, RimWorlds. There are worlds that are still on Steam technology only. There are tribal worlds, there are medieval worlds, there are advanced worlds, there are worlds dominated by mechs, there are glass worlds, there are post-apocalyptic worlds, and some of these are actually mentioned in-game as well, like in the descriptions for wasters and stuff like that. There's probably like 12 different kinds of worlds, RimWorlds, mentioned, and there's also core worlds mentioned, right? Yeah, like glitter worlds and stuff like that. So that could be another easy thing. Easy, I shouldn't use that word, but toggling a world type, you know? Like I would love being able to toggle like a medieval world type without a mod, and just it limits what's in the game for you and everyone on there as medieval, you know. So those are things that are in there a lot. Climate change type stuff, terraforming, and world types are some of the big ones. All right, so we are going to switch gears and play RimWorld now. We're going to switch over to the Waster run. We can continue talking about this stuff. I will upload this I recorded it, so I will upload it to YouTube. It should be live in the morning, I guess. But we're going to switch over to the Waster run. That was interesting. And like I said, obviously we can't pinpoint a specific day, but we can get an idea of timeline of when they post stuff. So what we 100% know is that typically the time between hiring an artist and releasing the DLC is 3 to 5 months, right? So that would, let's see, next month is a year since Anomaly came out. So, and previously it's been 15 months between DLCs. So that puts us on that kind of average. I would guess probably 3 to 6 months. But yeah, we might actually get it during the summer instead of the fall, which would be pretty surprising. And yeah, it was pretty informative. We could also now, like, having watched that and kind of deciphered a little bit, now when things are asked about what do you think they will add, what won't they add, things like that, we can start asking these bullet point questions. Like, all right, could this tell organic, like small scale stories, like small group, like RPG group was mentioned stories, or not? Is it too big for that? You know, yeah, things like that. Anyway, I found it interesting. Hopefully you guys found it interesting. I am going to end the recording, and then I will get stuff set up for the YouTube stream.